I first became acquainted with Endtime Ministries probably close to 25 years ago, and quickly fell in love with Brother Baxter and his family, and had no idea that 25 years later we would be so intricately and uniquely, our families would be woven together in such a unique way. But when we got the word that Brother Baxter was sick and didn't look like he was going to make it, we just couldn't believe that. And then at that same time, Rush Limbaugh was battling his cancer. And when we were going to Brother Baxter's funeral, my wife told me, she said, the two men that I listen to the most are leaving this earth right now. She said, it looks like I'm going to have to start listening to you. And then Brother Robin showed up. And so I'm back in the back seat again, and now she listens to him every single day. So we're praying that your demise will be soon too, so that she will have to listen to me. We're so glad you're at the Pentecostals of Gainesville. If there's anything we could do to help you tonight, we'd be more than happy to serve you. But I know you did not come to see me. You came to hear where we are concerning Bible prophecy, and we are honored to have Brother Robbins with us. Would you put your hands together and let's receive him right now?
Well, good evening, Gainesville, Florida. Man, I've been looking forward to coming to Florida for years and doing one of these. So when the Tonys called us, I was like, man, I'm in. Just tell me where I got to be and what I got to say. So thank you, Pastor Tony and his lovely wife. I'm not so sure if it's Pastor Tony or his wife the reason we're here, but I guess that doesn't matter. And I'm thankful to be here with y'all. I'm from Dallas, Texas, so you might hear y'all a little bit, but that's just part of my Texas twang, and very thankful. I'm a transplant from Indiana. Many of you would know me through Irvin Baxter, my father-in-law, who started Endtime Ministries, wrote his first book in 1986. And it was called A Message for the President. In that book, he stated that the Berlin Wall would come down. Because of the prophecies of the Bible, the Berlin Wall would come down, the two Germanys would reunite, and that would be the catalyst that would launch us into a new world order. He wrote the book in 86, and all of his friends said, Irvin, don't write that, you're nuts. The Berlin Wall is never going to come down. That's a symbol of the Cold War. He said, no, prophecies of the Bible, it's the healing of the deadly wound in Revelation 13. I'm going to put it in the Bible, in a book, and so he did that in 86. Well, 3 years later, when the Berlin Wall came down, the two Germanys reunited, and 19 days later, George H.W. Bush, John Paul II, and Gorbachev all came out of their meetings talking about the new world order. And it went, as we would say today, it went viral. It went nuts. We sent copies to President Reagan, who was a studier of the book of Revelation. He sent us letters back, and I mean, that's where Endtime Ministries was born, because of the prophecies of the Bible that God showed my father-in-law, Irvin Baxter. And from then on, we went and we started producing. Back then it was cassettes, then we went to VHS, flip charts. We ended up going on the radio in 98. And that's right after that's where we met Pastor and Sister Tony here. They were in Omaha, Nebraska. And I remember going out there and doing a conference years ago. We did many of them out there. And then we went on television 2009, 2010, and it's just really went nuts since then. So God has certainly blessed us. God took like Pastor Tony said, God took my father-in-law on Election Day, November 3rd, 2020. And our family has speculated that God didn't really want my father-in-law to know who would win the election. And so he just took him. And so at any rate, God has certainly blessed Endtime Ministries, and so I know that's why you're here. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to the pastor and Sister Tony. They pastor this wonderful church here. I would say if you're looking for a wonderful, I'm always saying on the radio and television, you have to be part of a good Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church in the end time. It is imperative, because I rub shoulders with all kinds of different denominations, all kinds of churches all the time. You get in the TV world and the radio world, and it just kind of takes you by storm, okay? And I've seen churches that back when they started, you wouldn't recognize them from where they started to where they are today. You wouldn't recognize them. There are churches that are doing things that are diametrically opposed to the Word of God, and even in their pulpits and different things. And so in the end time, there's going to be a complete separation. And I know personally of churches that are getting sucked up into this world government, in this world religious system. That's something you absolutely cannot be a part of. So in the end time, you're going to have to be a part of churches that are teaching you true biblical foundational principles, and you cannot move off of that. And the reason I'm telling you this is because there are churches that are everywhere that are moving away from those things. And you simply cannot be a part of that in the end time, because God is coming back for a church that is built on the rock. And I've got to stand with that, and that is teaching the doctrines without fear or favor. And so that's the goal in all of this. Yes, I am going to talk to you about news, different things going on tonight. But also, I want to see everybody sitting here make it to heaven. That's the main goal in all of this. We're teach and preach the gospel of the kingdom of God. What's the gospel of the kingdom of God? The God of heaven is coming back before very long to establish his kingdom here on the earth. Let me show you how to be a part of that kingdom. Jesus taught it, the apostles taught it, and any God-called man or woman in 2024 will be teaching that exact same message. So that's what we teach, and very thankful for that. So thank you all for having us here, and God bless this church for that. Okay. Everybody grab a magazine. Everybody grab a mag and turn to the middle where you see an envelope. I'm going to be collecting these envelopes here in just a little bit. I'm going to go through this quickly because I've got about a 3-hour lesson I'm going to cram into 2 hours tonight. Okay? My goal is to get you out of here by 8 o'clock. I'm going to do the best I can to do that. And so grab the mag and open the envelope. Inside the envelope, Endtime is a partner-supported ministry. And if you'd like to partner with us, we have a global ministry. We have Endtime really functions on 5 lugs of a wheel. And there is radio, television, the magazine that we started. I want you to take this magazine home. This is a special conference magazine. But we started a magazine in 1991. And so the 5 lugs, magazine, radio, television, prophecy conferences, and then we have what's called the Jerusalem Prophecy College. Because of what Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24 about warning the Jews to flee in Matthew chapter 24, we have a role in Israel in the end time, warning the Jews to flee. Jesus said, when you see the abomination of desolation occur, or when the Antichrist stands in a future Jewish temple, proclaiming to be God, let those which be in Judea flee. Where the Judea in the Bible is the modern day West Bank. Well, the Jews don't follow the New Testament. And so who's going to warn them? Well, my father-in-law years ago asked God this question on his way to Israel, and God said, you've got a magazine, you've got a radio, television program, I've given you this global platform, you're going to warn them. And my father-in-law said, well, I don't know Hebrew, I wouldn't know how to go out and warn those people. And God said, I gave you this global platform, you're going to warn them. Well, God miraculously helped us buy a college in downtown Jerusalem, and it's functioning now. All of our missionaries, everybody works. Our college is the hub for our Christian movement in the world. Our missionary works out of there. All of our churches, everything works. It's the hub for Israel is our college. And so I teach in that every Thursday morning from our studios in Dallas. And so God has helped us to have a great footprint in Israel. I have very influential friends there that God's helped us to establish. And I'm interested in the people. We're not going over there planting trees and things like that in Israel. They've got enough trees. I'm interested in the people there because those Jews will have to be born again if they're going to make it to heaven. Jesus told Nicodemus, who was a Jew, Nicodemus, except you're born again, you can't enter or see the kingdom of God. That's John chapter 3. And so I'm interested in the people there, and God's given us great influence. So if you'd like to help us in this effort, there's a place to partner with Endtime Ministries there. We have people partner with us for $100 a month, and some of them are $5 a month. And everything matters. I had a guy send me 3 dimes in an envelope the other day and said, I want to help me reach somebody in prison. And because we reach into a lot of prisons. We send, I don't know how many magazines, thousands and thousands of magazines and different things because we have full-on churches going on in prisons. And so we're reaching the prisoner, and I'm reaching for people in the White House and everybody in between, okay? So very, very important. We have a huge prison ministry, so everything matters here to us. We use it, and it goes right back into the ministry. And none of us are getting rich off of this stuff. I'm simply trying to get people to heaven. Number 2, there's a place to subscribe to Endtime Magazine here. Started Endtime Magazine in 91 when George W. Bush signed the Real ID Act, basically turning our driver's license into a national ID card back in 2005. Our partners started subscribing, everybody in Washington, all the movers and shakers in America, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, all of our Congress, every president, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the Speaker of the House, have gotten them since 2005. And of all of that, we've only had one person ever send us a letter and said, don't ever send this magazine to me again, and that was Paul Ryan, the ex-Speaker of the House. Everybody else, a rhino, by the way, you've heard his name pop up recently in the news, but everybody else, President Obama, George W. Bush, until he went out of office, Donald Trump got it the whole 4 years, and now Joe Biden has got it. And so, I've got letters, I've got signed books from them, all kinds of stuff. It's very cool. I've got a friend of mine who remodels the offices of Congress. When they come into office, they'll say, I want a brand new office. Well, he's a very high level, very detailed carpenter, does real unbelievable trim work and things like that. Well, he goes in and remodels their offices. And he told me, he said, I've seen Endtime Magazine sitting on their desk many times. And so maybe some of them pitch it, but a lot of them I don't believe do. I believe they're reading it, and so very thankful for that. So if you'd like to subscribe to Endtime Magazine, it's a bi-monthly magazine. It's only like, I think, $20 for a year. So it's very cheap, but it's a way to keep up to date on what's going on in the news right now that pertains to Bible prophecy. I'm not a newsman. I've been called in to teach Bible prophecy, but I can use news articles to show you how those prophecies written 2,000 to 2,500 years ago are coming to pass right now, showing that we are just prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, I know there might be some of you sitting there going, Dave, I heard about 88 reasons why he would come in 1988. Well, I heard about that magazine, that book too. But the fact of the matter is that many of those guys were writing those books from what they knew at that point. They didn't understand many of the prophecies that are happening right now. I went through some of those books. And then I'm like, these guys didn't understand this and that and the Holy Roman Empire and all this other. But God miraculously showed my father-in-law these things, and now there are things happening now that were not happening when my father-in-law was here in 2020. And we never had like in the morning, I'll be talking to you about central bank digital currencies. My father-in-law and I never had one conversation about a central bank digital currency, but it's the number one thing I see on the planet pointing us towards the mark of the beast. You understand? And so I'll be talking to you about that in the morning. But the magazine's a great way to keep up on these things. Number 3, down here at the bottom right-hand side on the envelope, 2 red sentences. Number 1, I'd like to receive Endtime's e-weekly newsletter. Every week, our staff puts together a newsletter, video clips, news articles, different things from that week, showing you, using current events to show you some of these things I haven't even got to talk about on the radio because everything's happening so fast. What I do every day, it's 5 to 6 hours prep for me to do a radio program, and I'm having to cull out so many articles that I can never get to. And so a lot of those articles go in this e-newsletter. It's free. All you got to do is fill out your email, fill out the stuff on the left-hand side, and make sure if you're a doctor in here, make sure your wife puts your email in there because I got to be able to read it when we get back to the office. Okay, very important. And but I get mine every Friday morning, and it's like clockwork. We send out tens and tens and tens of thousands of these every Friday morning, and it's a way for you to keep up to date. It's free. Just fill your information in on the left-hand side. Finally, and the absolute most important thing of this whole weekend, tonight and tomorrow, is that there's the last red sentence. I want to join an end-time Bible study. So here's the deal. For decades now, we have went around to different churches and established end-time Bible studies because so many things are happening right now. So I've been on many, even prior to, but even since my father-in-law passed, I've been on many radio and television programs, especially with what happened. I was stuck in Israel on October 7th when the bombs started flying and they declared a state of war. We were stuck there a week after that. So we were one of the last tour groups out of Israel, if not the last one out of Israel after they declared war on October 8th. We were stuck there. my wife and I and our tour group. So while I was there, I had radio and television programs calling me. I'd never even heard of these people, and they were trying to get me to do interviews. So I went up on the roof of our hotel, got me some lawn chairs, and set up my computer. And I had like this CNN studio desk up there, but what it looked like, but I had lawn chairs and stuff setting up, and I was doing radio and television interviews. Well, I found out people that you watch on TV and listen to on the radio, that they really don't have a clue what's going on in the world. They were asking me questions that were very, very elementary when it comes to some of this stuff. And I thought, man, I told my wife when I got off, I said, man, I've known this for years, but I told my wife, I said, if these people understood Bible prophecy, Glenn Beck gets it. Glenn Beck is so good from a secular standpoint, but if he understood Bible prophecy, he could tie all the pieces together. They can't do it. I've been on with Grant Stinchfield and all these guys, and Grant told us, when I got off the interview, he told us, he said, you guys, I have looked through the Bible before. I looked at those beasts, and I thought, this is a comic book. He said, he didn't have a clue about the beasts. But when I walked him through the beast in Daniel 7 and how they federalized into a world governing body in Revelation 13, he was blown away. He said, I had no clue about any of this stuff. So if the movers and shakers in America could tie the pieces together with Bible prophecy, they could really get an understanding of what's going on and where we're at in the world. So what we've done for you is this church is going to have an end-time Bible study here. It's free. They're not going to charge you a dime. They're going to walk you through all of this. And I'm telling you what, if you don't understand Bible prophecy, you could get into so there's some do's and don'ts in the end time. We're in the end time, by the way. I'm going to prove, you'll know that before this weekend's over with. But if you don't understand Bible prophecy, there's some do's and don'ts. There's some things you absolutely have to be a part of in the end time, and there's things that you cannot. It's of eternal consequence to be a part of. And so this Bible study will help prepare you mentally, physically, and spiritually for the times just ahead. And so that's why it is important. I've got Bible studies going on all over the world, end-time Bible studies. People recognize. We've got them going on. We've had them going on for years in the United Nations. I've got a friend of mine that teaches these things in the United Nations, all over the world. And I had a lady contact me within the last 6 months. And she said, Dave, I've got your stuff online. I started teaching your Bible studies. I started out with a living room full of people, and now it's went nuts. And I've baptized all kinds of people, and I've got like 30 or 40 people in a giant Bible study. She said, can you or Doug or Vince come pastor this church I've got started? And just from end time Bible studies. And I said, where are you located? And she goes, Slovakia. And I said, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. I said, well, I've got a tiger by the tail in Dallas. And she was like, well, what am I going to do? You guys started this whole thing. And I said, well, let me get you in touch with the missionary over there because, oh my goodness, if we could only have her in one in every church, it would be awesome, right? So anyway, this church is going to do an end-time Bible study here. It's going to start March 19th at 7:30. You show up here on Tuesday night, and then for every Tuesday night after that until it's completed, they'll walk you through this. And I'm telling you, you have got to be a part of this. If you've never been through one of these end-time Bible studies, I can't believe they're going to do it for free, to be honest with you. I'd charge for it. Actually, I wouldn't. I'm teasing. But I've done hundreds of them. And I've seen so many people. I've had people coming up to me and Dave and said, Dave, oh my goodness, I had no clue this stuff's going on in the world, even here in Dallas or even here in San Antonio or wherever we do them. I had no idea. You need to know what's going on because your news media is dumbing America down on purpose. That's why End Time Ministries on our YouTube channel was just demonetized forever. We were making a monthly check off of YouTube. They just cut all of that because they're trying to silence Glenn Beck, Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro, all of them. All of these guys are being silenced by YouTube and Facebook. They do not want everybody knowing what's going on in the world. They want you to believe it's like Hitler's propaganda machine. During Hitler's propaganda machine, if anybody was caught listening to a radio station that was not Hitler's propaganda machine, you were taken before the Gestapo. They were silencing the conservative voices in that era. That's what they're doing to us. So these Bible studies will help open your mind, I promise you, to what's really going on in the world today. You say, well, Dave, I do something on Tuesday nights. Cancel it. Yeah, it's that important. I'm not kidding. When I say I've talked to the intelligentsia of our society, These radio and news people are the ones that were feeding you all this stuff, and they don't have a clue what's. Many times they'll send me an email and say, Dave, can you send me a list of questions to ask you when you come on our program? They don't even know what to ask, okay? This Bible study will walk you through this in intricate detail. World government, world religion, precursors of the mark of the beast. Well, I'll tell you all about it in the morning. It's going to blow your mind how far we are off into this. So the Bible study, check the box. I want to join this end time Bible study that's coming on March 19th. Tuesday, this church is going to walk you through it. You're going to watch a video, go through outlines, quizzes, the whole thing. You can create your own notebook. It's a blast. And I'm telling you, it will put you leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else that's just being led like a lamb to the slaughter through our news media. It's horrible. Over 90% of our news media in America is bought and paid for by 5 corporations. And they're all way left. And they're just feeding you full of stuff. And if you're getting your news from your nightly news, I would encourage you not to. Because it's propaganda, it's agenda driven. So, the Bible study will help you understand what's really going on in the world. You'll see that before I'm going to give you one example tonight, this whole lesson. So check the box. I want to join the End Time Bible study. Fill your information here to the left, and I will collect these envelopes here in just a little bit, okay? Very, very important. Now, let's get to what you came for. So just hold right here, back there, and okay, there you go. Now, the Green Horseman and World War III. So this is Bible Prophecy 101, okay? Revelation chapter 6, verse 1 through 8. We're going to get into it, the first 4 seals. A lot of people believe that the seals, trumpets, and vials, which is the skeletal structure of the book of Revelation, only happens during the final 7 years. Most people on TV, in the radio world, if they talk about prophecy or that have written books, only teach that the seals, trumpets, and vials happens only during the final 7 years, and that the church will be gone before all this happens. Okay, we're going to pull you out of that narrative. Okay? Before tomorrow. And so church is 10 o'clock in the morning. Here's my invitation to everybody here. Number 1, tomorrow morning, I'm going to hit the treetops of this lesson tonight. Tomorrow morning, I will be doing current events. I'll be going through the 6 major things you have to know that's going on right now in the world you probably didn't know about. Especially the central bank digital currency, 10 o'clock. And then I'll do that for about 45 minutes, and then the final 45 minutes till about noon, I'll be doing a Q&A session. And anybody from the crowd can raise your hand, and we'll banter back and forth, okay? It's a blast. I've done hundreds of them, and I'm telling you, it's so cool. People love it. And so that's what's going to happen in the morning. So you got to show up in the morning. Here's my personal invitation to you. 10 o'clock in the morning, be back in here. And it's going to be a blast in the morning, okay? Now, tonight, the Green Horseman and World War III. So I'm pulling you out of this narrative because we're going to go through this stuff, all right? And we'll talk about that in the morning, I get it. But I want you to understand that we will be here during these things. And so let's talk about it tonight, and let me prove to you what I mean by the Green Horse and World War III. Go ahead and progress one there. Okay, so what's going on in the Middle East right now? Because we're living through this, right? You understand World War III and all the things, or well, the potential for World War III, what's going on with Hamas and Israel and Iran. What in the world is going on? This news is pushing these narratives, and the international community is trying to force Israel into a Palestinian peace agreement. So what in the world is going on here? Well, the Bible walks us through all of this in great detail. You understand? And so this is what I wanted to cover with you tonight because we're living through it. This lesson is so relevant. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is because when what happened in Israel on October 7th, I'll be going through that here in a minute, we were stuck there, and I realized that even the main news sources in America had no clue what's really going on in the Middle East. Our Congress has think tanks. I'll get to that at the end of the lesson. In America, there are think tanks, the Middle East Institute and different things, that are specifically devoted to what's going on in the Middle East. And they've been telling our Congress, look at what's going on. Don't you guys understand? And we're ignoring them. This is what is going on in our government as we speak. And so we've certainly wanted you, I wanted to teach this lesson, and you'll see how relevant it is before we get through here. So what's going on? Iran has It says 6 front here, but there's actually a 7 front. Israel's fighting a 7 front war right now with Iran. Iran has terrorist proxies. So for several years, I've been watching Iran. Didn't start last year. I'm talking about for several years. Iran has been surrounding Israel with their terrorist proxies. If you've ever heard in prison, they have these things called shot callers. There's a guy that just sits back with his arms crossed and he just says, you boy, go do this. You handle that, blah, blah, blah. They're called shot callers. Well, that's what Iran is in this situation. Iran is the shot caller. And they've got terrorist proxies that go do their bidding. And they're all against Israel and the United States. So what the terrorist proxies would be, you would recognize them in the news as Hezbollah up in Lebanon. Then you have Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, which is southern Israel, and in the West Bank. And then you have the Houthis. You've heard about them, the further down in Yemen. And then there are terrorist proxies in Syria and Iraq. And then, of course, there's Iran. And these are the 7 fronts. They fight what's called the war of attrition against Israel. They're trying to make them bleed very slowly because they're trying to annihilate Israel is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of her totally off the map. And you'll understand why before this thing's over with. But Israel is fighting really a 7-front war. The war of attrition is simply just making her bleed slowly until she just completely evaporates, okay? Now, I can prove scripturally, obviously, and I know you could too, that Israel's going to be here all the way throughout the end. Prophecy tells us that. So Iran's going to fail. But the Bible talks about what's going on right now because it's the rise of Islam in the world today. I don't have a video of this. I wish I could put it up there, but when I went to the chiropractor the other day, on my way back to Endtime, there's a giant Raytheon facility that's within less than 5 minutes from Endtime, my television studios in Plano. Raytheon is part of the military-industrial complex. They're supplying bombs and different things to what we're doing over there in the Middle East. They supply the military implements and around the world. So the Palestinians, I drove by there the other day. I was, just almost to the studios. And there was there were flags and there were people going nuts out there. There was a huge demonstration. They've been doing that in front of all the Raytheons and different parts of the military-industrial complex because we've been supplying Israel with some of the implements to help them fight. So there are huge Palestinian Hamas demonstrations in front of Raytheon. And when I went through there, I saw some Orthodox Jews in there. Well, I know that there are Orthodox Jews that are totally against Zionism or the modern state of Israel. They believe that when the Messiah comes back, there's going to be this great miraculous event, and then that's when God will draw Israel back in. But they believe the people over there are imposters. So I'm driving through this Palestinian parade, and I thought, and the guys that have the long sideburns that are all grown out and curly with the black top hats, they were standing there with them chanting. And I thought, this is nuts. But it's coming close to home, is my point. Well, I went back and got Doug Norvell. We went back and we took a big video of the whole thing, and I mean, it was crazy. It swelled to almost 400 people. I mean, it was crazy right there because the 2 largest Islamic factions in America is in Dearborn, Michigan. Henry Ford brought a lot